boy. Yeah. Alright. Victory. Victory, nigga. Alright. Hey, wait. Toss me some more racks. Toss me.
Which one? That one? You want which one?
What? That one? Which one?
Oh, it's more 100.
Police have identified two men who may be responsible for a series of armed street robberies that have been taking place for nearly a month.
Come on, cuz. Come on. Come on.
In today's video, we're going to be speaking about Nero YSL from Schoolyard. We're going to break down his cases and more, but let's just dive right into it. For those of you that don't know who Nero YSL is, he would be a rapper out of the Schoolyard Crip section. This would be the same area that Blueface is from. And at one point he was dropping a bunch of music, and even Dodie 6 featured him on one of his albums. And around the time of him dropping music consistently, he would go to Big Sad 1900's hood, and he would shoot a music video in front of Joe's Market. Joe's Market is a known hangout spot for the PBGs, which would be the enemies of the Schoolyards. Nero YSL would be in and out of juvenile hall, but we're going to start off with his first adult case. Let's dive into it. He was arrested on August 9th of 2017 at the age of 19, but as you can see at the bottom, it would say misdemeanor. But even though it was a misdemeanor, he was arrested for 3 separate counts. One count of carrying a concealed weapon in a vehicle. The second count would pretty much just be having an extended magazine on that firearm, and then the third count would be driving without a license. And since it was a misdemeanor, he was released on a personal recognizance. But then on January 5th of 2018, he would take a plea deal. And he would just take a plea deal on count 1, and he would have the other 2 counts dismissed. And on that same day, they would give him 36 months of probation. But just 3 months after taking that probation, he was arrested again on August 11th of 2018. And he was arrested for 1 count of grand theft of money, and then the second count was burglary. But as you can see to the right, the offense date was November 4th of 2017. Which means this took place while he was out on bail for the other gun case that he was fighting. But after sitting in the county jail for about a month, he would bail out for $85,000 on May 31st of 2018. But a month after bailing out, they would refile an old case on him on June 28th of 2018. But this time it would just be 1 count of petty theft. They would then allow him to post a $20,000 bail that same day. And they would also allow the $85,000 bail from the other case to stand. But just a couple months after bailing out of them cases, Nero YSL would go on the run. And this right here would be why.
Police have identified two men who may be responsible for a series of armed street robberies that have been taking place for nearly a month. Take a look at the locations where similar street robberies have taken place starting on November 6. NBC4's Rick Montanez is live in Mid-City with the information police are working with. Good evening, Rick.
And Michelle, good evening to you. Tonight, LAPD says at least 3 of the reported 13 armed robberies happened on this stretch of Pico Boulevard near San Vicente. 2 men jumping out of a car and targeting people. We showed her these photos, but she does not recognize the men police are looking for.
Now, as you just heard, they would accuse Nero and one other person of 13 robberies between the dates of November 6th to November 30th, which would be a week after Nero bailed out, because don't forget that he bailed out on September 26th. And they're being accused of driving around in a white Toyota Camry with paper plates, and one of them would jump out with a revolver and rob somebody that was walking. Nero then went on the run for about a month until he was arrested on January 4th of 2019. And he was arrested for 1 count of evading police officers. But as you can see to the right, the offense date was April 27th of 2018. And luckily for Nero, the 13 counts of robbery got a DA reject. So now at this time, Nero was fighting 3 separate cases. 1 case for grand theft of money and burglary, 1 case of petty theft, and 1 case of evading officers. But just 6 days after being arrested after going on the run, he would take a plea deal on January 10th of 2019. They would dismiss the 1 count of burglary, but he would take a plea deal on the grand theft of money. And they would give him 3 years of probation for that case. And luckily for Nero, on January 25th of 2019, they would allow him to post a $125,000 bail for the evading officers. Then 2 weeks later, on February 5th of 2019, he would take a plea deal on the petty theft. And they would give him 8 days in the county jail. But as you can see at the bottom, the total credit is also 8 days. So technically he didn't have to do any time. So now at this time, he was able to stay on the $125,000 bail for evading police. And at that time, this would be the only case that he was fighting. He would then stay free on the streets fighting this case for about 9 months. But on September 24th of 2019, he took a plea deal for evading police. And on that same day of September 24th of 2019, they would give him 3 years in the county jail. But as you can see, the total credit would say 300 days, which would be about 1 year. Nero then had to sit down and do his time until the end of 2021. He was then released and he would get back to music. But unfortunately for Nero, he wouldn't stay free for too long, because on July 30th of 2022, he was arrested, which would be about 8 months after he was just released. And he was arrested for one count of being a felon in possession of a firearm. He would then have to sit in the county jail for about a month, but on August 24th of 2022, he would bail out for $35,000. He would then get back to dropping music while out on bail, but it's like Nero couldn't stay out of trouble, because just a few months later, he would be arrested again. He was arrested on November 9th of 2022, and he was arrested for one count of burglary, one count of grand theft, and one count of carrying a firearm. He was arrested out of West Covina with 2 others, and it's alleged that on November 9th at around 3 p.m., police officers would respond to a call of a residential burglary. And when they responded to the scene, witnesses would give a description of a vehicle. Officers then canvassed the scene until they found the vehicle. They would then attempt to pull it over, and the vehicle would flee. And shortly after jumping onto the highway, the vehicle would crash. And after the vehicle crashed, the 2 male passengers would jump out and flee on foot, leaving the female driver behind. They were all then arrested, and Nero was held on a $1.3 million bail. His co-defendant, that was a dude, was also held on a $1.3 million bail, but the female was allowed to bail out shortly after they were arrested. So now at this time, Nero would be fighting 2 separate cases, the case we just spoke about, and then the firearm case from previous. But luckily for Nero, just a couple months after being arrested, he would have the old gun case dismissed on January 24th of 2023. So now at this time, he was just fighting that one burglary case. And after fighting this case for almost 3 years, Nero would take a plea deal on June 24th of 2025, and he would take a plea deal on every count. And for count 1, which would be first-degree residential burglary, they would give him 17 years in state prison. On count 2, they would give him 2 years in state prison. But as you can see at the bottom in the comments, it says state pursuant to Penal Code 654, which pretty much just means a suspended sentence for that. In count 3, they would give him 8 months in state prison to run consecutive with count 1. So in total, they would sentence him to 17 years and 8 months, with the 2-year suspended sentence, and he's eligible for parole in April of 2035. But that right there is going to wrap it up for the story of Nero YSL from Schoolyard Crip, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in. But comment, like, and subscribe. It's Respectable Rants.